Is Misha Ruairidh MacLean. Ha mi furach an alappe, agus be making she skialachan and dachuch an a Gaelic agus Bearla. Hi, my name is Ruairidh MacLean. I live in Scotland, in the Highlands, and I tell stories in both Gaelic and English. And it's really nice to speak to people in the Isle of Man, where you have a sister language to our own, Manx Gaelic. I was on your island some years ago and enjoyed it very much, and was able to make myself a bit understood by speakers of Manx Gaelic. I'm going to tell my story in English, but with the odd word of Gaelic here and there, and if you speak some Manx, you might even know some of the words yourself. So this is a wee traditional story about birds, and the time when birds found it very cold. It was very cold in the winter. Vai gamafuur, vai chofuur is a fusion, as cold as the poison, as we say. And it goes back to the days when the birds all spoke Gaelic. Yeah, I mean, I think they still do, because I hear them sometimes flying past where I live, and I hear the breach and the oyster catcher sing, "Be gleich, be gleich, be wise, be wise." So I think they do still speak Gaelic. But anyway, back in those days, all the birds spoke Gaelic, and it was a time of great happiness, except for one thing. The birds were cold in the winter. What were they going to do about it? Well, they had a great meeting. They all came together in Lochailsh, in the Western Highlands of Scotland. If you've ever been there, where they gathered, you could actually see the Skye Bridge today, the bridge that crosses from the mainland to the island of Skye. But back in those days, well, there was no bridge. I'm not even sure there were people. This goes back quite a long way. And the birds, well, they were feeling cold in the winter, and they were complaining, they were grumbling, they were moaning. You know, birds are pretty good at that. And thousands of them eventually came together in Lochailsh, just on the shore and off the shore, in great packs and flocks, all chatting about how cold it was in the winter. What were they going to do? What could they do about it? Well, who better to tell them about how to get warmth in the winter than the giver of warmth? And who is that? Well, you'll all know. It's the sun, Egrian, the sun, yeah. And she's feminine, definitely. She's beautiful, this great orb, this great ball in the sky that gives us warmth. So the bird said, yes, we must speak to the sun. That's who will tell us what to do. We must go to her. Well, how will we go to her? Said some of the birds. I mean, she's a long way away. Well, we'll fly. Don't we have wings? We'll fly and we'll speak to her. Yeah, okay, maybe. She's a long way and we can't all go. Thousands of birds, all going to speak to the sun. She won't want to listen to us. We must choose just a few. Who will we choose? And they looked around all the great variety of seabirds that had gathered together, and they weren't sure who to choose. But one of them stepped forward, and it was the Fualach, the seagull. And the Fualach started to dance around with enthusiasm and say, yes, it's me, I must go, I must speak. Femi misha Berina Shigrein, Femi misha, oh, have me hop maher shenagus, Pavelum, avi blah, a sigaurig. I'd love to be warm in the winter, said the Fualach. Yes, it must be me. I must go and speak to the sun. Nobody else. Me. Maybe somebody else can come along, but I'm the person. And the other seabirds, well, they didn't like the seagull too much, but they said, okay, you're enthusiastic. We'll let you go. And so the Fualach got ready to fly to speak to the sun. But the birds thought, no, we need more than that. Let's choose 3 altogether. And the next one they chose was the Scarab, the cormorant, the great, big, black bird that hangs its wings out when it stands drying off in the sun. And it was rather a laconic creature, and it spoke and it said, "Yes, H. Misha Alm Hokrashiv. If you like, I'll go. I'll go and speak to the sun as well. I'll accompany the Fulak, the seagull." And so we had two of the birds chosen, the Fulak or seagull and the Scarav or cormorant. And the birds looked around for a third one, a third representative to go and speak to the sun, and they couldn't decide who it would be. And there was one bird that was just not really paying attention. It was, well, rather good looking. It was a male bird. He had sort of white and a bit of black and a lovely bill and sort of braided feathers, rather fancy. And he was, I think, probably looking at his reflection in a piece of water and admiring himself. And the other bird said to him, "How about you? Will you go and speak to the sun?" "Monsieur, me? But I could do that if you like." He wasn't too full of enthusiasm, but in the end he agreed that he would be the third bird. So there they were, ready to leave, the Fulak, the Scarav, and the Lochlannach, the Scandinavian duck. And you might know him as the eider duck. So they were ready to go. And they said, "Well, where is the sun?" "Well, look up, look up." And they looked up, and there in the south of the sky was the sun, almost beckoning them on, but she was a long way away. And they looked at her and thought, "Well, we must fly south. There's no choice. We must do it. Let's go." So the three birds headed off into the south of the sky. But do you know this? The sun wasn't really playing fair, because the sun wasn't staying still. The sun, it was moving. I mean, gosh, how can you fly to something that's moving? And as the birds headed south in the sky, so the sun was moving, well, you'll know, she was moving west. They started off flying south, and then they started to veer towards the west. They were going south-southwest, and then southwest, and then west-southwest, and all the time the sun was moving across the sky. And eventually, when they got close to the sun, she was in the west, and unfortunately ready to slip below the horizon. But they arrived just in time to speak to her, and they were out of breath, pretty tired. "Again, again," they said. "Sun, sun, will you listen to us? Will you listen to our plea?" "Yes," said the sun, "of course I will. What is your plea?" We are cold. All the birds are cold in the winter. We wish for warmth in the winter. And you are the giver of warmth. You will be able to help us." "Oh," said the sun, "you've come at the wrong time of day. I'm just about to go to sleep. And I have no choice. I cannot stay and speak to you. I'm just about to go." And she was starting to slip below the horizon into the western sea. And the bird said, "Well, where can we speak to you?" "Well, you must speak to me in the morning," she said. "And where will you be in the morning?" said the birds. "Well, of course, everybody knows I'll be in the east. I'll be rising in the east, and you must come and speak to me then. And I'll tell you what, the first bird that speaks to me and says, 'Matin va, Igraine, good morning, sun,' and speaks to me nicely, I'll give them the best warmth in the winter." "Oh," said the birds, "Cleva, very good." Agus, and they were about to ask her something else, and suddenly she was gone. She dipped below the horizon, and the world began to change. An orange glow that had been in the air turned to red, turned to purple and violet and inky blackness. The sun had gone, and the night had arrived. So the birds realized they had nothing they could do but head off to the east. Well, it was an awful long way from the west to the east, and they were already tired, but regardless of that, the Fulach, the seagull, said, "Oh, I'll be fine, I'll be fine. I'm going to stay awake and I'm going to fly all night and I'll be the first to speak to the sun in the morning. Yes, I will say Matin va to the sun in the morning, good morning, and she will give me all of the best things to keep warm in the winter." Well, the Fulach was convinced. The Scarav, the cormorant, thought and said, "Yes, well, stocha garamushin viese. Perhaps that's how it will be. I'll head off and I'll fly to the east, and maybe I'll just be the first to greet the morning sun. Yes, maybe I will." And the Lach Lochanach sort of looked at the darkness, the Eiderduck, and it said, "Yeah, okay, well, H Misha Ankuchach, I'll go as well, and we'll see what happens." So through the night they flew, and how they knew where the east was from the west in the darkness of the night, I can't tell you. Nobody can. It's one of the great magical mysteries of the avian world, the world of the birds. But arrive at the east they did, eventually, and it was still dark. And the Fulach seagull said, "I'm not going to fall asleep. Oh no, I'm not going to fall asleep. I'm going to be the first to meet and greet the sun. I will say Matin va again to the sun as soon as it appears, and yeah, everything will be mine." But it was getting tired. And the Scaravs said, "No, Fanny Misha Namagush, I'll stay awake and I'll be the first. I'll be the first to greet the sun in the morning." And the Lach Lochanach, the Eiderduck, well, it just tucked its pretty little head under its wing and said, "I think I need a norak. I think I need a sleep before I do anything else. I'll be hopeless in the morning if I don't have a sleep. And if I'm the first, or if I'm not the first, well, maybe it won't matter too much." So the Eiderduck put its head under its wing and fell asleep. And I think you know what happened, but I'll tell it anyway. Of course, the sun arose, as would be expected in the east. And who was waiting ready to greet the sun but the Eiderduck, the Lach Lochanach, the Scandinavian duck that had a nice little sleep with its head tucked under its wing. And it said, "Matin va, Igrain, good morning." "Matin va," replied the sun, "good morning to you. And because you are the first bird to have spoken to me in this morning, I will grant you the greatest gift of all to keep you warm in winter. We call it cloichach, down. It's the stuff, the little feathers, that keep a bird warm, and you will be the warmest bird of all." And so it came to pass. And that's why, you see, the Eiderduck is the warmest of all and has the finest cloichach, the finest down of any bird in existence. But the sun wasn't altogether without cariness, charitability, and it looked at the poor seagull that had now woken up and was distraught that it hadn't been there to greet the sun. And it looked at the poor Scarav or cormorant and said, "Well, I'll give you both some down as well. Why wouldn't I do that? And I'll give some to all the seabirds so that you're warmer in the winter time." But of course, the sun had already granted the greatest gift to the Eiderduck. And that's why the Eiderduck is the warmest of all the seabirds and has the best down of them all. And I'd like you to know that every word of my story is true.